Hello guys, my name is Arun and welcome to my channel. This series is a series of tutorials on Advanced Fortran programming. Now in this tutorial we will be looking at an important concept. As I mentioned earlier, this is called as file operations. Now if you guys look at my previous tutorial series on basic Fortran tutorials, okay, we were there I would have discussed you guys a little about files, how to write data into files, how to read them in a specific manner, and so on. Now in this tutorial what we're going to do is that we're going to do that in a little more extensive manner, and we'll be looking mostly into the file processing mechanisms available in Fortran. Okay, now before we go to that, there is a major difference in the types of files available in Fortran. Okay, there are two types of files that you can process and write in Fortran. You can read the data and write it. There are two types of files. Okay, one is called as a sequential file, another is called as a random access file, but this random access is also called as sometimes as direct access file. Okay, now how are these two are being differentiated? It's based on the way in which the memory is being handled while storing the data and reading the data. Okay, now sequential is the simplest of these two. What it does is that it takes all the data and writes them in the memory in the form of groups, and these groups are written one after the other, so that's why it's called a sequential, or in other manner serially. So what it does is that it takes one chunk of data, writes it on the computer, and then takes the other chunk of data and writes it on the computer, and writes it on the file, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the problem here is, because it is sequential, suppose if you want to find the 10th record or something, then you have to read all the nine data groups before it to reach the 10th data. Suppose if that's being the case, suppose if you want to read the 1000th data set, okay, suppose you have 10,000 data groups, and out of which you want to read the 1000th data set, you have to write 999 data sets before reading that. So the problem with this is, okay, it is memory efficient. It's memory efficient, but the problem here is that for a very large number of data, this becomes a little hard to process and stuff. Okay, and here each data group that we talked about, okay, is differentiated, and it's differentiated from the others using a unique identification code called as a key field. Okay, this is nothing but one of the data types, the values taken by one of the variables, which is different and differentiates the entire data group from the other. Something like if you have students, suppose if you have a class of 50 students, let's say, and the roll number of the student, each and every student might be a distinguisher, can be used as a key field. Suppose if you have like 100 employees in your office, and if you want to maintain a record for everybody, then their employee ID, something of that sort, can be used as a key field. Nothing much. Okay, that's about sequential. And about direct access, as the name mentions, okay, what it does is that all the data and the data groups are placed randomly in the file. Memory wise it's free randomly. In the sense, what happens is that you can, because of this feature, you can access any file instantly without having to pass through all the files, all the data before it. Suppose if you want a 100th record, you can just directly access the 100th record instead of passing other stuff. So because of this thing, it's not that memory wise efficient, but the thing is, it's worth it. It's a better choice for a large data set, but it's very poor choice for a smaller data set. And here the identification is used by, identification between data groups is used by something called as keys. Okay, so what you have to do is that while writing the data in a direct access file or random access file, you have to mention to the compiler and the compiler that the certain variable in that file is used as a key, like your key field, to differentiate this data group from the other. Okay, that's enough of me explaining about the types of files. Let me explain to you the program I've written over here, and then I'll walk you guys through as how to do with it. Okay, now what I have is, I just have a small program with a lot of comments in between to just explain you guys what's going on. What we're going to do is simple. First of all, this program is divided into three parts. First, we're going to enter a student's name. Okay, enter a set of students' name, their roll number, and the grades they took in about, sorry, not 5, 2 courses. Okay, some 2 courses. Okay, and then we're going to feed these data, and all these data will be written into a file. Okay, that's the first part. Second part is that Okay, that will be taken care here. And then the second part starts over here. What it does is that it will find a specific data among all the data sets and prints them. Okay, and that will be done in the second part. The third part, what we'll do is that this part is I haven't verified that yet, but we'll have a look at it. This part, what we're going to do is simple. We'll find one of the data sets. Among all the data set, we'll find only one data set, and in that one data set, what we'll do is that we'll change the data. We'll get new values into it and update the data set. I mean, erase that value and update it. Erase that value and update it. Once that is done, okay. Once that is done, what we're going to do is that we'll open the data file and have a look at that. Okay. Now this is how the program works like. Now let me just walk you guys through. Okay, we just getting roll is actually for the roll number. IO is just a key, an integer. We'll explain you that later. The grades is used for storing the grades. Okay, and use the unit number for the file. Okay, and these are just variables that are used to process all the stuff, and that's it. Nothing important. Okay, now what we'll do is this. Now to open the file, especially a sequential file, what you need is that you need this command open, and it needs it actually needs 9 arguments over here, 9 parameters like unit, form, file, status, and everything. Okay, I just included only a few of it. Unit is actually a kind of a number given to the file that is being processed, so instead of using the file name all the time, okay, so you can use the unit name for easy access. And then you need the file name, which is given by this file name is I written as stud_rec.txt, and then I given a status call as replace, meaning what does it do is that if the file is already present, that file will be removed, and instead of it a new file will be placed on top of it. So the previous file will be deleted and a new file will be created. Okay, and then IOStat is just a variable to show whether the input output status is going nice or wrong. Okay, now this open parameter function, okay, has like 9 arguments in it. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, now what I do is that I check after opening this. Now because of this command, the file will be open. Okay, and then it'll come to this if statement over here. If this variable iOS is not equal to 0, then we'll print a statement stating that the file cannot be opened, and because of the stop keyword, the entire program is shut down. What it means is that what does this iOS means is that it says whether the file opening is proper or not. If iOS is 0, this iOS variable which we used over here in this IOStat, if it is 0, then it means that the file has opened successfully without any issues. If it's less than 0, then we have reached the end of the file, and if it's some other value not equal to 0 or something, not equal to 0, then the file is over. The file is you're not able to open the file. Simple as that. Okay, and now what we're going to do is that we'll enter the number of entries over here. These entries are the number of student records we're going to enter. Okay, and then I specified a format here. This I4 is for the roll number, A25 is for the name. Okay, and it's separated by 3 spaces, and then we'll have two integers of each of 4 spaces long to write the grades they've scored in two subjects or 2 tests, whichever you call it. And then using the do loop, I'm getting all the data, the roll number, name, and the grades. It's simple. It's not that complicated. We get the dates. And then what you do, I write the data using this write command, using the unit and the format. This format fmt refers to the format over here. Okay, writing the data, this data, roll number, student name, and grades in this format. Simple as that. And after we do that, we close the file, go to the top of it, and we close the reading writing operations using this keyword end file u. U stands for the unit number. I'm using that, and using this statement where you are closing all the reading writing operations. This appears to be optional here, but on safer basis, but for some advanced purposes, it's better to have it. And then using this rewind command, I'm going to the top of the file again. Okay, that's why I wrote the command here. It moves the file reading pointer to the beginning of the file, and then I'm closing the file over here. With this, all the data will be written on the hard disk, and the file will be closed. And then I'm printing it, and then what I'm doing is that I'm reading all the data. Now we'll be reading the data. Okay, now what I'm going to do is that among all the data, this data, the data with the roll number 10 will be printed over here. Suppose if you have like 100 data sets, like if you want to, I know what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to read all the data, and if the data is roll number 10, okay, so corresponds to roll number 10, I'm going to print that. Now how do we do that? It's simple. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to use this open statement again, this time with the same keyword. Since this file is closed, I can use the same file number to unit number to open the same file, so it doesn't matter. Even if you use a different file unit number, it doesn't matter, it's not a problem. And then it opens the file, and it says that the status is old because the file is already written and done, so it just opens old status. Old says that it's open. Okay, and then check whether the file is open or not. If it can be open, it just proceeds. If it's not, if this IOS is not equal to 0, then file stops. Fine. And then here, line by line, if you notice, this is iterationless infinite do loop. It's an infinite do loop, so we need an exit statement to break this up. So what I'm going to do is that I read the data, roll number, student name, and the grades using the format 10 with IOStat equals IOS. Okay. If IO is less than 0 in this data processing, it means that the file has reached the end. Okay, and if this happens, we are exiting the do loop, so that we need this exit statement. And then what happens is that I'm just to show that whether which data has been read by the computer, by the processor, by the compiler. Okay, I'm using this print statement just to give an idea of which data has been processed so far. Okay, it just prints all of that. And what happens is that if here in this if statement, if the roll number that of the data set which was achieved, which was read, is equal to the roll number of our choice that we mentioned on the top, then what it does is that it just sets this value f to be 1. Okay, I'll use that I'll explain this later. I'll explain this in a while. Okay, and it says that it prints a statement roll number found. Yes, we found the roll number, and then it prints the roll number, student name, and the grades like that. And okay, just like this. Now if you run this, if this works out fine, it will print the roll number of our choice. Suppose if we give roll number 9 instead of 10, it will print the data set corresponding to roll number 9 over here. Okay, and then since f is set to 1 over here, it just says that, just like a message saying that okay, we got the data, and we retrieved the data, and we are able to retrieve it and use it as per our choice. And if this f is not equal to 1, it means that somehow the roll number we entered is not in the data set, so we are just printing a message saying that sorry, data is not available, nothing much. Okay, with this, after writing all the data, we are reading it. With this we can read all in this format. If you want, we can read all the data. I'm just reading only select one, that's it. And then with this way you can extract and read any data in the file. Fine. And then I'm closing this file again. Now what I'm doing is that I'm going for the third part, wherein we'll be replacing one data set with another data set. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to set this r number to 5, meaning this is the roll number data set which is going to be modified by us. So we'll be extracting these data, remove it, and in place of it we'll be writing a new data set to it. Okay. Now the same way, opening the file, status old, fine. This checks whether the file can be opened or not, and then I'm reading all the data. Okay, it's just exactly the same procedure, and if the required roll number is found over here, it sets f to 1, and then it just gives the message roll number found, and then it asks the user to enter the roll number, name, and grades of the students, and then writes them in the file and exits the infinite do loop. And then this goes on, and once the data is received, it just goes on and on. Data is received and goes on, and then it says that since f is set to 1 over here, this loop will activate, and it says that congratulations, your data is edited and stuff. Okay, and if suppose the data set we asked for is not in this file, this loop will just terminate ultimately, and then we'll get this statement, sorry, the data cannot be edited, works, prints, and then the file is closed over here, and then the program terminates. So we are achieving three things over here. Which, first of all, writing data to a data set, writing a data set to a file, searching for a given variable and searching for a given data set and retrieving it, and finally third, finding a data set and replacing it. Okay, and then what are you going to do? Okay, I think before that, we just have to use something over here. I forgot. Backspace U. I'll explain you guys what backspace U means. Okay, and then we are going to do that. Okay, I'll explain you guys what backspace U means here. See, what happens is that see here, as and when this data has been read, okay, let's say this let's say in this do loop it's asking for the roll number 5, and suppose let's say this has read roll number 5. Okay, now what it does is that this command will move to the next line, and command will move to the next line, and it will be waiting over there. Okay, which will be the place where roll number 6 might be available. Now what we are going to do is that we want to override the data set which is already available at roll number 5. Okay, now if you do not use this backspace, what will happen is that the roll number 5 will be kept as it is, whereas roll number 6 will be modified. Fine, roll number 6 will be modified. Now if you don't, we wanted to modify roll number 5 but not roll number 6, so what we do is that it uses backspace. And now what this backspace keyword does is that it just moves the entire file pointer to one data set above. So what happens is that here, after once this command is reached, it goes to data set number 6, okay, data group number 6, and then when it reads over here, when it goes over here, okay, it just moves, this goes to one data set higher, and it remains at 5, and then when all this data is written, it writes everything to data set number 5, and then goes on, and this goes on it is as it is. All right, now let me explain you guys the other parameters in open and the close commands. Okay, open has actually 9 parameters. The unit, which is nothing but ID for the file, it should be an integer. If it's an expression or a variable, then it should return an integer, and this is compulsory. This is used for identifying the file. There's this optional keyword called as form, which takes two strings, namely formatted or unformatted. Formatted means the dataset that you're going to enter to the file will have a certain specific format. Unformatted means, you know, the data is kind of free. It does not have any specified format, and it's specified format like that, and this is optional, but by default, if it's not entered, the data is usually written in formatted manner. And then file, this is nothing but the string, but this is actually the file name, but surprisingly this is optional, but most importantly, this is recommended to be made compulsory. Okay, and then the status. This is a very important parameter which you have to take into consideration. What it does is that it explains by its name, it explains the status of the file. Okay, and it's purely optional, but it has 5 string values. If you give the status value to be old, I mean the strings are case insensitive, just like for case insensitive, so it doesn't matter whether it's in small case or uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't matter. If it's old, what it is that it'll see whether the file is already present. Okay, this is used for if the file is already present, but it can throw an error when the file is not present. If it's new, then you tell the compiler that okay, this file is not present, and if the file is available, then it throws an error saying that the file is present. Okay, now scratch is not used often, but it's interesting. What it does is that it just creates a temporary file, and if you want to save data to a certain data file for during the execution of a program, okay, then you can use the scratch. What it does is that it just opens a temporary file, okay, as per your wish, just similar to how you write a data file, and then writes all the data sets, follow all the procedure as it is, and it writes all the data set. And what happens is that when you finally execute the program, when the program is executed, and when they finished executing, this file will be deleted, will be wiped off. Okay, just like that. Just like how your variables get stored in the RAM and memory, and they get deleted when the program terminates, like that the file also terminates. Okay, and then replace is used for replacing an existing file. If the file is available, it will be replaced. If the file is not available, a new file will be created, and that's what replace does. Okay, and what it does is that when it replaces a new file, the already existing file with all its data is removed, and then you have a final statement called as unknown, which is the safest option by default. What it does is that it sees whether a file is available or not. It doesn't matter if the file is available. If the file is available, it just resets the file and starts from the beginning. If the file is not available, Okay, sorry, if the file is available, just opens it up. If the file is not available, creates one. Okay, and then based on the remaining commands like access file, like the access, the action or the iostat or the previous other commands, it just does the job accordingly. Okay, now iostat, we explained it. If it is optional, if it returns a value 0, then the file is open. If it returns a non-zero value, then either there is an error in opening the file or you reach the end of the file. Okay, access, it is optional. Okay, what it says is that it just says to the Fortran compiler as to what kind of a data file you are processing, whether it's a sequential file or a direct file. Okay, by default, this is optional, and by default access is set to sequential, and then RECL or RECL is actually an integer or an integer constant or an expression which should be greater than 0, and this specifies the maximum length of records in a direct access file possible. Okay, and RECL is not at all required, but when you are doing when you're writing a direct access file or a random access file, it's compulsory. It's absolutely must. And then you have a keyword called as action. Okay, now what it does is that, okay, it just says what kind of a job to be done. This is important. Let's say what kind of job to be done, and there's 3 strings: read, write, read, write. Now by default, what happens is that if we click read, if you set this action to be read, then the file that you have opened can only be, the data from it can only be read. You cannot write anything to it. If you set it to write, you cannot read anything from it. Okay, so that's what I meant over here. If read or write option is selected, it disables the other option, writing or reading option. Okay, but this keyword is purely optional, and by default the files are open in read write mode, wherein you can do both of them. Okay, and then finally last option, error, it just a statement it just says a statement number to which the line of execution of the file should go on. Okay, the program, it should go on when you reach a certain error in the file while reading the data, and it's purely optional. Okay, that is regarding the open function. And let's go to the write function. Okay, here the write function, as to my understanding, has like 4 parameters, and these are in proper order. And the first is unit, as we mentioned above. Format is simple. It's just the format in which the data has to be written, and what you have to do is that you just have to give the format number over here, just like this. Here, for this write format, the format number is 10, whereas this 10 corresponds to this format statement over here. So it's just like an ID. You have to give the ID for the format number. That's nothing much, and it's compulsory. Unit is compulsory. Unit is optional. Okay, but if you're indicating a file, then it's compulsory. Okay, if you do not indicate the unit, what it does is that it just prints the data on the screen, your shell or screen, whichever you call it. And then format, it's optional, but if you fix a format, then you have to give it. It's compulsory in that case. And then rec is used for indicating the key group, the key file, the key variable of a data group. This is especially for differentiating data groups in direct access files. This is not at all required for how do I call it? This is not all required for sequential files, but it's important for direct access file. And then advanced, what it does is that just moves the cursor in the file after printing or writing the data. If you say yes at the end, what it does is that it just moves to the next line and waits there for the data next upcoming data to write. And if it says no after writing the data, it just stays on the same line and says the same line and the same position. Okay, and writes the next upcoming data over there itself. Okay, by default it is yes. You can set this to no option. Okay, now enough of me explaining all this. I still have few more things to explain here, but I'll just run this program to give you guys a feel. Okay, now I have to compile this, build this, and execute this. Okay, now it shows me a shell screen over here where it's asking me to enter the number of entries. Okay, for simplicity, let me just give 5 entries. Okay, now it just asks for the roll number for the first student. Let me give the first student's roll number to be 2. sorry 1. Okay, and the name of this person to be, I give my name Arun. Okay, here, okay, I have to enter the grades for the student. Let me say 8 and 9. Okay, now then for the next student, let me give it roll number 2. Let me give it roll number 2, and then this I give my brother's name Ram. Okay, nothing much, and then 2 grades like 6, 3, whichever, and then I have give a third roll number. Let me give this to be 5 for just for a change. Student name, I just write my father's name Guna, short. Okay, and I give it 3 grades, 2 grades for it, 5, 6, like that. And then it's as for the fourth roll number. Okay, I'll give it, okay, I previously I give 5, let me give it 10 over here. Okay, the student name, I'll just write my mother's name Shanti. Okay, and then grades like 8, 9, fine. And then final, let me give this to be the, okay, I gave 1, 2, 5, 10, let me give this to be 20, just any 5. And this name I'll give my aunt's name Prema. Okay, and then 2 grades 5, 9. Okay, now before we proceed further, I'll explain you guys what exactly has been done. Okay, now okay, let's see. Okay, what exactly has been done? So after writing here, these are the places where we wrote all the data correspondingly in the file. Okay, this loop has been executed and we have completed over here. Everything is done. Okay, and this is where this line comes over here. Writing done. Let's read the data, shall we? That's what it reads over here. And then it closes the file, and everything is done, and starts reading the file. And then it reads the since I mentioned it's sequential, look how it works. It first reads the first data set, first roll number, second roll number, fifth, and then 10th, and it finds the 10th. So it just goes to this name and saying that roll number 10 is found, and roll number 10 corresponds to my mother's name Shanti. So, and the grades, 2 grades, yeah, and it prints this statement just like that. All the data can be extracted and printed, so on. And then it goes to this line saying that congratulations, the data was retrieved. And then searching done. Let's okay, let's replace the data, shall we? Okay, and then it found the it found the data set here. Okay, and it's saying that it's waiting. What I'm doing is that now it just actually waits for this statement. Now I have to do is that I just have to give the new roll number. Okay, the thing is I gave the old roll number to be 5. To make sure that this is different, I'm giving it to be 6. Okay, the roll number to be 6. So if you guys notice, it was initially 1, 2, 5, 10 and 20. Now it will be 1, 2, after rewriting it will be 1, 2, 6, 10 and 20. So I have to give this to be 6. And the name, okay, this is my father's name, right? I'll just write, okay, I'll write his full name here, and then the grades, let me set this to be 10 just for sake, just for to show that it's completely modified. And then yeah, it says that congratulations, my data has been edited, and the file closes and everything is done over here. Okay, I press enter, done. Now let me just open this file, start record. Okay, now apparently the data after the first due data are fine, data are fine, but beyond that I think the data got wiped off. Okay, this I didn't check, but the backspace command did work. That's the reason why the data set which was supposed to be there in the first was wiped off. Okay, and now it's so, but the thing is, once you've done this process, everything else is wiped off. That's the reason, and this I wanted to show you this because there's a reason for it. Okay, this is the problem with sequential files. Once you start writing a data, it just okay, how did I open this, by the way? Yeah, okay, so what happens is that once this when you're reading something and you're just writing the data along with it, it kind of wipes out literally everything that follows afterwards. So what you have to do is that when you're updating data sets, read the data, write the new data, and then write the new data, and then replace the old data. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to explain these parts over here: adding or modifying or adding new data, or adding more entries, okay, or adding entries. Okay, I'll explain you guys what over here. If you guys notice, this is a problem that we have, okay, when replacing data sets, because one data set, adding it changes everything. So this is how we should do. Okay, what you do is that if you want to modify or add data, open a new file, okay, read and write the old contents into the new file, and then what you do, based on where you want to place the new entries, and delete place the new entries, and finish everything with the old entries, and then close the file. Okay, this is applicable to modifying and reading the entry, modifying the data, or adding entries to the data. So what we should have done over here, is that we should have read all this, and when the corresponding data set is found, what we should have done is that we should have read all this, written this in a new file, okay, and when this corresponding data set is found, you should have stopped it over there, and instead we should have received this data and written this in the new file, and then proceeded with reading the data from the other file and writing this in the new file. Okay, this way what will happen is that everything will be taken care of. Okay, and this overwriting part will not be causing an issue. Okay, next, similarly, if you want to update a file, meaning add more data to each and every group, okay, meaning suppose I just took, if you were to see in the top part, okay, I'm just getting only 2 grades over here, subject for 2 grades. Suppose if you want each data set has group has 5 values, then what you have to do, if you already have the data set for 2 values, what you have to do is that you should not overwrite this. You should not write this. If you do that, just like what you saw, it'll just clean up everything from where you update and everything else, and just makes a mess out of it. So what you have to do is that open a file again, read the old contents from the file, and read the new contents via direct user input or from some other file, and then consolidate them and write them in a particular manner as per your choice, and then delete the old files. Similarly, if you want to merge 2 files, what you do is that open a new file, okay, open the files whose data has to be merged, read the data from the old files and check for duplicates, okay, and then consolidate them and write them in a particular manner, write them in the manner in which you're okay with, and then delete the old files, close it and delete the old files. Okay, now what I like you guys to do is that experiment with this and stuff, and you'll find this interesting, and this will be a very, very, very great use, especially when you're handling advanced data sets. As of now, we're just only using the text data sets, or one second. As of now, we are just dealing with only simple data sets here, but if you want, there could be advanced data sets like netcda files and complicated files and all, for which these processes will similarly work good. So if you guys want to learn that and you want to understand what's going on over there, and knowledge of understanding files over here is essential. Okay, so this may be a very simple part, but it's very important if you guys are working with writing data into files and stuff and all. Okay, that's all I have for you guys in this tutorial. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. And in the next tutorial, we'll be looking at how to do all this kind of processes in direct access files. So see you guys then. Take care.